Welcome back to the WatchTower Film Podcast, the film review podcast on the Towercast Network
And the world.
and the world. That's our other podcast, but the way to incorporate it in this one by cinephiles, for cinephiles. And this film we're covering today is, very, very heavily for cinephiles, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely.
If you're a cinephile, this film's it's gonna
Got too
Did it
excited
get your
there, huh?
cinephile going?
it's gonna rustle some Jimmy. Shout out to my
Better if you're
father.
a hippie. This
Is he going to be
definitely a film
rustled?
for you.
Yeah, my father would watch this movie and be like, "I'm so rustled. why are we watching this stupid
Your
film?"
mom's gonna watch
My
this.
name's Jimmy and I'm Russell.
Your mom's gonna watch this and be like, "You're right."
Yeah. No. If she watches, she'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Like,
I just picture him sitting in the driveway, just like, my name's Jimmy and I'm Russell. Just
oh my god, it's really rustled me.
just with the same,
Russell my face.
short shorts and cowboy shirt we saw him in.
Oh man, shout out
The
to my
aviators.
On New- I'm joined today by my fellow co-host, Mr. John Arcas.
How you guys doing? I'm give you my acting perspective on this film today.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Mr. Michael Alao, whose pick he used for this film.
Howdy ho, fellers.
What socks are you rocking today?
I'm rocking them fucking hippie socks.
Oh,
piece.
definitely for this film,
Yep.
for sure, dude.
Can I have my shoe?
No PAs for that. Nope.
What are you doing?
I like your shirt, though.
He's gonna, okay.
I don't think we can see that on camera.
We can't, but that's all right.
There we go.
Also joining us today is Mr. Austin Young, making sure we're sounding good in the ones and twos over there and slicing these episodes to make sure they're coherent when we say something stupid. So thank you, Austin.
I like hominy.
Timestamp.
Now say something stupid. I'm gonna zoom in on your face for that.
On me breathing right
Yeah.
now, like this.
Just get it out.
No, it's the
Say
action
it
of
with your chest.
the action of breathing
There we go.
incorrectly to me is like one of the funniest things in the world.
Breathing correctly.
Incorrectly, because normally it's like, okay, guys, take a deep breath in and then out, and that's normal. But when somebody likes to just really mix up
Reverse
the
breathing?
yeah. Like I yeah, exactly. Like I get a kick out of that because I'm like, oh man, like your body's not telling you to do that.
Man, you'd
What
love
do
sleep
get
apnea
customers
patients.
Like that or what?
I am the customers like that. What are you talking about?
You'd love sleep apnea patients, buddy. I don't know what to tell you.
And I'm joined by,
And
last but not least, Mr. Carlos de la Torre.
I'm your fellow film servant, Carlos de la Torre.
The one
It's
and
not a
only.
beer. It won't go up and down. Offering you a writing, directing perspective here on this mumblecore dialogue-driven piece that
Is that a Criterion mug that I see?
it is a Criterion mug. I chose it because we're doing a Criterion film today.
And I chose the mug with my name on it
I chose the nut
because
The nug.
The nugget.
because the actors in this film also use their name.
And I got the Sundance one because
This was a Sundance darling of 81.
I had that in the
don't know
chamber,
if it
but I
wasn't.
didn't want to fold
I
out.
don't know if it was. I don't think it was. In fact, it didn't get a ton of success when it first came out.
What film are we
sort of.
talking about?
We're talking about Louis Mally's 1981.
I am correct on the year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. 1981.
Film.
It's hard to categorize it, right?
It's a one-location film.
It is, sure, but as a genre.
As a genre?
As a genre. Is it a dramedy? Is it a...
I think it's going to be considered...
Comedy drama, yeah. Comedy drama. My Dinner with Andre. We're talking about My Dinner with Andre, starring Andre Gregory and Wallace Shawn, not as themselves, but as characters that they created. And by they created, I mean that. They both co-wrote the screenplay of this
Really?
film. They did.
Nice.
And
that's
I
wonderful.
want to kick off a little bit with that because I think it's important for us to know the process of kind of how this film came together. Maybe before I do, we should give our ratings right off the bat.
Rapid fire?
Rapid fire.
No, it's
your
your pick,
choice,
so you
buddy, old pal.
choose.
I want to start...
You always want to start with me.
No.
Why?
no,
I want you-
Austin.
no, hold his hand while he gives his rating.
You don't break eye contact with me
Yeah, why
when you
don't you ever
do.
start
know-
with me, bro?
Damn. He just called you out. You gonna take that?
No, don't even go there. No, hell no.
I'm about to start some stuff. You want
hell
some
no, bro.
beef on the podcast?
Dude, I'm gonna do some
Hold
sign
on
language.
to your hot pockets, ladies. because
Blow on it.
What about the gentleman?
I guess they can have hot pockets too.
If we didn't catch something like a hot episode, we value women on this podcast, and we had them on. And
Yeah, man.
What does that have to do
you
with?
said hot pocket women, he has to blow on.
Well,
I don't know,
because
man.
let's be honest.
Because hot pockets get hot.
And
Yeah, but they also
burn.
get cold.
No, but let's be honest. The ladies really are here for Castro. That's the moneymaker.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. Very
And
strong points to make.
Film it.
The Jake Gyllenhaal,
Look,
the
I'll
Tower.
give mine rating first. Since
I was
it came
about
out
to ask.
In 1981, I'll give it an 8.1.
Okay.
Fair.
It was very
Sure.
thought-provoking.
What if it came
It
out
took a
in
while to get
2010?
started, but towards the end, I was really into it.
Okay. Fair enough. I have a thought on why that is, but then we'll get into it.
8.1.
Okay. Austin.
I get to pick who goes next.
No, I wanted
Carlos,
to go
go
this
next.
way. No, Austin, go.
Yeah, I get to pick who goes next.
No, I'm picking who goes after Castro, and that's
So who's
you.
on first?
8.5.
Okay.
8.5, yeah.
Why'd you double take at me?
Because I forgot that we're doing rapid fire. I was like, oh, you're not explaining. And then I'm like, oh, wait, no, that's the point of rapid fire. Carlos.
I feel like this is just taking
You
longer.
know who he
Yeah,
looks
I
like?
feel like that was directed towards
He
me.
looks like the director in Licorice Pizza inside the bar.
Oh yeah.
The one that tells him, all right, camera one, camera two. You remember? He's wearing the baseball cap. And he's got his hair sticking out.
Give me something to
That's
work
true.
with. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah. I'm going to give this...
And not because of the historical.
No. I'm going to give this
You.
an 8.9 because I know how hard it is to do this.
Oh, okay.
You know, I know
Ooh, that
how
is
hard
true.
it is to carry an entire picture
Just
with
the full
dialogue.
dialogue.
And I'll admit, I was with you, Castro. Like the first half of the first act, I was like,
Which I think is intentional.
where are we going?
Yeah.
What are you doing? You know,
It's just being giving you.
And
Where's
then-
this forest?
where's this for? No, you know, it wasn't even the content. It was how the content was being delivered. And there's a very good explanation for that. That I'm deducing. Part of it is very logical. The other part of it is very analytical. So I'll kind of get into both.
Yeah,
when-
I want
when
you
we-
to right now to describe, because I think you're reading up on this film. So you probably have more knowledge right now as far as the overall scope of
Sure.
it.
And then just my analysis, I think.
Yeah. Also, Fundamention.
The fundamental fundamention from Fun de la All.
That's our new fucking section.
What is it? The fundamentals by Fundamation.
The fundamental fundamentation by Fun de la All.
Hi.
Funlo.
Funlo?
Say that 3
Fun.
times.
Oh, Fun de la All, because fundamentation, fun.
Yeah, like fondue.
Yeah, the D's there. The D's not silent, huh, Daddy?
Hello to Michael de Osma.
Hey, Ed!
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
I say Ed, but
But
I don't know
I'll
her
introduce
personally.
your segment, please.
Hi. I also suffer from having too much fun. If you go through this on a nightly basis,
The arms of
contact me at 915. And then the rest of my phone number, because I don't need anybody else contacting me at night.
555.
555-552.
You're missing one digit.
Well, I
sets.
put a 2 at the end, so they can add one
You
more.
said 555.
Split 'em up.
552.
And there's 9 numbers you can try out to see if we get the correct one. You have yourself some
Eventually
fun.
get it.
All right, fundamentally,
Okay.
fundamentation, fundamental.
Fun de la.
I'm so sorry for anybody who thought we were really going to talk about My Dinner with Andre. No, it's just this now. No,
Come on, we all just had coffee. We're all.
I was going to say they had espresso.
They did have espresso and amaretto.
See, there's one thing about you, man. Sometimes you say you haven't watched the film, but during the film, sometimes you make comments that make us think you did watch the film. So why do you make us believe
That's,
No, he
that's
hasn't.
all I
This
was
is
going to
a
mention.
bucket list
That's
film.
all
It's a
I was
bucket
going to mention for the Fundamation Fund Me film.
Fundelo.
There
Fact.
you go. I almost got it.
Fundamentals, fundamentation.
So normally when we do this podcast, everybody in the group will watch the film, or not everybody. One person,
hope so.
One person, at least beforehand, usually says,
Right.
"I've seen this.
Yeah.
It's a favorite of mine. It's a bucket list pick." I mean, everything you've picked, you've seen before for the most part. Very few times
Yeah.
do we have a film that we've just said, "No, I'm just going to roll the dice," and
Yeah.
it's new for everybody. For me, I knew that. Coming back into free month, and it's been quite a while, I wanted to pick something that I've been wanting to watch. It's really just a shot in the dark, but I feel like from everything I've heard, it aligns with my sensibilities, and I definitely feel like this was one of those for me. I'm going to give it a 9.1, and I think that has room to change. But I do feel like it's a 9.1 very much on a personal level. It's so aligned with why I got into film and the conversations that I enjoy hearing in film and the introspection that it leaves you with afterwards. So, it's going to be high up on my list. I'm not saying that it's a weird place because you could be like, oh, well, what about films that have more of a technical factor? Like things that play more into the medium. Like, couldn't this have been in a different medium and given the same effect? And I think that that's a large conversation for debate. But no, I really, really liked it. So I'm going to sit it at a 9.1. But that's going to be our kickoff ratings. Brought to you by Planters Peanuts. Go ride the nut. All right.
Go ride what now? Sport?
Ride the nut. That's the slogan of Planters Peanuts. Sponsored by.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well,
don't they have a
if you
new?
were to say if it was sponsored by your mug, how would you read that sponsor read?
Sponsored by me. Yeah. All right. Now,
Yeah. Don't they have a new campaign? It's like instead of saying "ah nuts," like "ah nuts." Have you guys seen the commercial for Planters?
no.
That's the new campaign.
Oh, nuts.
Instead of like somebody's like saying "ah nuts," and they're like "no, ah nuts," you know, like that's pretty good.
I really
what
want
to do.
like a Barry White voice to be like, no. Oh,
all
nuts.
Just want Isaac Hayes from Chef from South Park to just come. No, baby, all nuts.
Gonna make love to you, woman.
My dinner with
All right,
Andre.
My Dinner with Andre. You know, this is
How would you describe this film?
It's very much a 2-person, 1-location film.
A hippie talking to a sober guy.
That's one way
it?
to put it.
That's the best way to
No,
put it.
you know, it's two old friends who were both at one point involved in the theater world. Who
They're still involved.
One of them.
no.
One of them writes, and like he calls his age. Well, like he
I
hasn't.
thought Wally was the one that.
He hasn't. Okay, Wally. He hasn't gotten a lot of jobs in a while. He lives with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend has to work like
2 jobs.
3 nights a week.
yeah,
as a
3 nights a
waitress.
week. Which honestly, like,
Doesn't
But
sound like
okay,
a lot.
what
but
they failed to mention, and you know, it's super hard to decipher if you don't know it. The girlfriend's a writer of short stories, a very successful writer of short stories. So she's able to financially.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't even catch that.
nobody did because it's not there. It's in the subtext, and that's why she can afford to financially support. But
it
since he's not working at all, it's like I kind of got to do 2 jobs.
Barely
to-
high,
it
yeah.
also kind of explains why she's with him because I
Yeah.
feel like in a lot of
Yeah.
these stories,
At that age, right? At
what do you mean?
36.
like he's 36, doesn't really have a job, and he's like pursuing his passions, and his girlfriend has to basically like pay for their living and rent and everything.
So
Like,
is that my problem?
No, I mean, but it
But like,
is-
why is she still with him?
Because she's an intellectual. She's a
yeah,
creative.
she's a creative also because I mean
She
I feel
writes, she understands.
gets-
yeah she understands.
Oh, okay.
I think
But she's
that's
had
what
a little
it's
more
kind of
success, right?
yeah.
So
Okay.
That's what I think it kind of like alludes to because
Yeah.
I was always feeling like I was wondering if at some point in the conversation there was going to be the practical element of like the person you're being with is somehow you damaging them,
Yeah.
or are you really in a relationship if there's this support system?
I've
but-
wondered that, right? And this is what this film does best: is it makes you ask yourself these questions, or ask yourself questions
Yeah, that's
that
what I
the
love.
characters are posing
Because at the
As
end of the day, in
creatives.
this conversation,
as creatives.
no one's right or wrong, right? It's just
Right.
however you take it.
Absolutely,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
No, and
Well, I
there's-
was more leaning towards one of them was right, but then he started saying some nonsense.
well, that's the thing, though, right? Like I remember both of you. I feel like you and you and Austin were reacting to the Andre character as like until you let him go, right? Until you let him go on, and you're like, huh,
Yeah.
But at first you're like, this motherfucker's. He's on some weird shit.
Yeah, and I mean-
and it's not just in the first act of the film, all the way through the end. He's bringing up points that you're like, dude, no, like
Yeah.
that's not how life is. And then you're like, oh, maybe that is how life is.
where
That's
he's like
fucking weird.
Like I
you know?
love the way he's casually explaining like, have you ever really been alive and felt a conscious moment? And don't you feel like that's important to life? And then he'll go on and be like, yeah, so we put these bricks together, and using their energy, they keep a roof on.
Yeah,
and
that's where it would just lose me. Like,
and he's
well,
like, so if it needs
thing
to
with the rocks
float
on the
up,
roof.
it can. You know? It's just-
Somebody
and I worked on that roof.
Criterion channel. The Criterion
Those little side columns, yeah.
Yeah,
They would add.
the Criterion channel specifically describes this film as a very philosophical film.
For
right?
sure.
Oh, yeah.
And
For sure.
and what I was trying to allude to a little bit just on the relationship factor was, I've often wondered. The question that was posed to me kind of in that scenario is, we don't see their significant others. We only hear about them. And
Yeah.
we get enough to know a little bit
Chiquita.
about them. Chiquita, for instance, you get to know right away why Andre would date somebody named Chiquita. And you know what I'm saying? And his kind of lavish, this, what's the word for it? This lavish life, right? This exotic life, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
he's got to be
He
married to an
lives-
exotic woman, and
He lives the
you know,
life of an adventurer, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody who is able to drop everything
Yeah.
at a whim. And like he said, they went to the Sahara and they were so upset that they didn't find what they were looking
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
But I mean, then Wally brings up, like, did you even really need to do that?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
to
Could you
just
do it
like
in a room?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Or like somebody like you complaining about like, oh, you know, like you're not being present and living the moment.
Yeah.
Well, oh my God.
Well, no,
I
but
could talk
I'm
about-
sorry. Just to finish off that point,
Please do. Sorry
I
about
feel like I've often asked myself as a creative, I'm not particular. I'm married to somebody who isn't particularly creative in the arts, and I've often wondered if that. Honestly, I mean, we've been together over a decade, and I've honestly wondered if that's the reason we've stayed together. Because when you're with another artist,
a good
you
question.
think they get it.
Yeah.
You know, they get it. So they're going to support me and I'm going to support them. But yeah, but at some point, somebody's got to pay the bills. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where Wally's kind of situation is at. And then you start kind of resenting each other, right? Like couples will resent each other over little shit, and not to mention money. You know, money's the biggest reason why people split up, really.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
In the long term. And I think with Sandra's like, okay, we both hustle, we both pay the bills, we're both there, and I'm creative and I'm pursuing something in the arts, and she's pursuing something in academia. And I think that's somehow the best balance that I could have ever asked for. But I've often wondered as an artist, like, what would the trajectory be with another artist? And sometimes
That's my dream girlfriend.
yeah, because sometimes it's like, it's a weird leveling field, right? Because what if that artist has more success than you? You know, and
You know what's funny?
yeah, right. But at the same time, somebody has to wither so the other can grow, and there's
pride
a
gets
weird
in the way. Yeah.
And then in Sandra's scenario, it's like, oh great, you wrote a new script. I'd love to read it. I have no idea how to do this. So cool. Like I don't need. There's no sense of competition. There's no sense of. It's a weird kind of factor, but I've always in this film just kind of reopened that for me.
But,
Like, that's
I mean,
interesting
Yeah.
kind of dynamic.
I've thought about
One thing I'll add into that though is that in some ways, don't you feel like, and I mean, it's not a direct correlation, but
Yeah.
you also did end up with somebody who appreciates a creative person.
Yeah,
Because,
sure.
because that's the thing. Like,
Absolutely.
What do you mean
if,
appreciates?
if let's say,
I love how you asked that.
Yeah,
Fuck,
I mean,
you
I
mean
mean,
like
obviously,
appreciates
it's-
homes?
No,
Yeah,
no, no.
I mean,
I
it's
just
obviously-
mean like, let's say if I was dating like an
being a
accountant,
partner.
right?
Yeah.
Somebody who maybe, or like somebody who sells insurance, somebody who's very like in tuned with like, I have a 9 to 5. I studied
logic,
this.
right?
Yeah. I studied this so I could get here. Talking to somebody where it's like, wait a minute. You have a realistic marketable skill, like let's say operating a piece of equipment, and you're not doing that because you're waiting to feel right about whatever you're doing, and you're waiting not only for that, but to get paid to do something that feels good. And you would
Right.
dodge things that would actually pay you now.
Yeah.
So that because it didn't emotionally like satisfy some qualm
Yeah.
you have. I mean, let's be honest. That's why I got into my whole situation recently. I mean,
Yeah.
that's all I'll say on that.
Yeah,
but,
but I mean,
like,
it's-
it's
yeah.
that. It's,
No, yeah,
it's
yeah,
a whole.
I
And then
understand.
again, there's no right answer, right? There's no right
Yeah.
answer. It's just the dynamic that you need in the partner and you prefer. And by the way, this film that's 2% of this film.
Yeah.
To
Oh my
touch
goodness.
on this particular topic that just opened this kind of thing for me at the.
Do you want to kind of break it up into chunks and maybe the
Yeah.
different chunks of the conversation?
Yeah.
I would love to talk about the beginning.
Okay.
What part?
Do you guys want me to dive in a little bit about the making of the film, or should we wait till the end and kind of figure out? I don't want it to sway you either way. I mean,
No,
I just think it's important to note.
I'll say this, just preemptively. I want to lay a foundation for, I guess, the conversation and people listening.
Yeah.
The film tackles a lot of different elements, and the whole thing it revolves around really is like, are we really alive and are we really living, or are we just kind of like walking around like robots and being asleep at the wheel?
How did you
playing a
mention
role.
it? My bad. How do you mention like the dream?
A dream world.
A dream world.
Yeah, a dream world. And in this film, they go through, it's just supposed to be like two friends from college that are catching up. What is his name? Wallace Shawn. He's kind of reluctant to meet up with his friend because he says, all I know is that I heard from a buddy that he was really sad, and I don't want to have to be that guy. That's
I'm already dealing with my own shit.
Yeah, like I'm already struggling
I
to
sent out
get
my
through.
plays to people. I've gotten them for auditions and haven't gotten them. I'm going through my own shit. I don't really need to sit.
Yeah, like I don't really want to have to go and be like that friend to console, but he invited me out, so I feel bad if I don't go. And I think it's meant to try to open up the film in a very relatable situation.
Yeah,
Sometimes you have people that reach out and you're like, man, okay, let me just go and do this. And but the reason it's kind of interesting us tackling the film right now is because the whole film is just really their conversation over the course of what's the runtime?
It's just
An
shy
hour?
of 2 hours.
150.
Really? 150? Oh my god.
Yeah, 150.
Yeah.
Just shy of 2 hours.
So
and
you're-
we don't move ever.
Yeah.
In this, I mean, we move camera wise, but as an audience member, I'll tell you, the first act, I couldn't help but think to myself, this should have been a play. And then you realize that it was. And to an extent, Lewis Malley had a lot of really clear intentions with how he wanted to approach that, but you don't leave their table. You're sitting in the middle of these two gentlemen watching this tennis match.
Big fan of that.
And
No, and
yeah,
that's kind of why I wanted to break it up, because you do feel the act breaks in Wallace's input. Yeah. Because at the very first half, and that's why I think it's hard to watch, and I think that's
Right.
why it drags, because
does
it's
it drag?
The first 10 minutes for sure.
Well, the reason I'm thinking it might drag or might feel like it drags is because it's the situation we've been in where somebody's just telling you about things they've done,
Right.
and you don't connect with that yet. It's kind of like if I told you like, oh yeah, I took this like trip to Spain. At first you're doing the polite thing and you'll say like, oh well, how did that go?
That makes
and,
sense.
And then
Okay.
if I'm explaining to you like, oh, we went here, but it was crazy because there was
it's
this brick,
constant.
and then this brick was out of place, and I thought I was going to trip on it, and then afterwards I didn't trip on it, and then me and this guy had an exchange,
Oh,
and I
you
left.
did that.
And then because you're still playing the polite role until you feel like there's substance that you can engage with, then you're just like, wow, then what happened?
I will say,
Yeah, little spurts of those, yeah.
While we get there, when you get to the very end and you realize just what kind of person Andre is, you're a little more forgiving of the first act, because you do realize that he had already got into a place in his life where he was like, don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what you have to say. I'm just going to live life how I think it's best. And I really don't.
Oh, but
I don't
I
want to
mean,
play the social niceties. I don't want to live in this kind of social nicety world, which is why I
basically.
think that
It's
we don't know it until we know it, right?
Yeah, but it's
I do think-
amazing to me finishing the film, how many questions I had.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
I thought I was gonna have more questions than I kind of like.
No,
I like the
Questions
whole-
for yourself.
No.
Not about the picture, but about your life, about life, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
I had questions about the character because I feel like
About which character, Andre?
Andre
Wally.
specifically because
I think
For
Wally
somebody-
Wally is us,
yeah.
right? Wally is
sure.
a representation of us as the observer, as the listener, as the why. And you start agreeing with Wally for most of these points, and then when he finally stands up to Andre, you're kind of like,
Yeah,
yeah. And then you realize, oh no,
yeah. At the end, you're like,
have you been living wrong all this time? And it's a weird kind
Yeah.
of question to pose, but yeah, I do think Wally's the observer. He's and not just because he's sitting there listening.
No,
he's
it's
asking the
just-
questions we want
well,
asked.
he's the one that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because he's living
Yeah.
in
Safely.
the world we're living in.
Safely.
Like the fact that they are having this big metaphysical conversation about what it means to be present in the moment and what that would actually feel like. And he's like, well, I got this electric blanket, and I mean, like,
Dad, let's talk about that
I'd
one.
never give it up for anything.
Oh
in the
no,
world.
and that's great because it's kind of like it's like us right now with cell phones. Like I don't
I wouldn't
want to
give it
go
up for
back.
anything in the world. Yeah.
You wouldn't go back unless you're me to a time before the smartphone,
Right.
But it's kind of like, but I do recognize that my life's different now. Like we never lived life with like social media, Instagram, and all that.
Right.
But then it's like, but was that better? Was that worse? And all that. But
Exactly.
so that's interesting.
By the way, while we're on the electric blanket, there's a very ironic moment with the making of this picture because they shot this budget was stupid small, man. They were able to get a $500,000 budget.
Whoa.
From
back then
just like investors and like just random fucking
5,000.
situations, right? I don't know how accurate that gross is because I'll say why right now, but $500,000 and they begged, borrowed, and steal to make this picture. And what they ended up doing was, sure, the exteriors take place in New York. The interior is supposed to take place in this fancy restaurant set in New York. They actually shot in Richmond, Virginia at an abandoned hotel, and they shot in the ballroom of that hotel. And they couldn't afford to turn on the heat, and it was fucking freezing. So in between takes, the actors were using electric blankets.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh my God, to have that conversation of like, but you know, like, but I feel cold now, and it's like, but you should
gotta be in the
appreciate
moment,
that.
yeah.
And it was so bad that the crew says basically all the crew were dressed in ski clothes, and the actors had to pretend they're not fucking cold. I mean, they were just like literally freezing
That gives a little bit
because
more
of the
to the
Virginia cold. But you know, you go to a soundstage in Hollywood, and sound stages are fucking
Yeah, they're all
freezing.
cold. They don't want anything to heat up.
You'll look through the walls, and there's big ass tubes of air conditioning flowing in because they have to feed in all the cold air, and then they have to turn them off and hope that cold. I mean, it's fucking airtight of a building, right? So it maintains cold. So maybe they're used to it. But
I've been asking Chuck, dude, I don't know what's going on.
right down there, man. If you turn on the AC, it gets pretty damn cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like this freezing kind of temperature, man, is what they had. They were sitting at a table looking nonchalant as best they could.
Eating their quails?
Eating their
Eating their
quail,
quail.
and you know, yeah. But anyways, just a fun fact about the electric
That's
blankets.
awesome. No, I was just gonna bring up a question. I think it's so interesting to see, like, the character of Andre, right? Mm-hmm. What he is to the audience, and you know, even in this conversation, he's a guy that's been to the mountain and back, and apparently at this point in his life, and I know he's not trying to be pompous about it, but he has all the answers. You know, well, yeah, like every time he explains something, Wallace, he's like, wait a minute, well, what about this or what about that? He's like, oh, exactly. Now, see, that's the problem. Or like, oh no, this is what you're thinking. Or, oh, that's just a misconception. He has all the answers. Yeah. But for a man that has all the answers, it's fascinating to me that the question that doesn't get answered at the beginning is like, why are we at a place like this? Like, why are we eating here? And then he's so... Sure, it's meant to show that he's a cultured person, that he's had everything on the menu. He can ask little specific things like, how is it prepared?
It's also like, meant to show that he's a successful person. I mean, he paid for the dinner.
Yeah,
he's a successful director, or at least was. So he's got money.
But
he is, you know.
Isn't it that in and of itself the same as the electric blanket, the luxuries of being able to have like fine cooking?
But his character was exploring the intention behind it, right? The intention of the electric blanket is to feel comfort and convenience.
Then why
exploring
isn't he
the meals
rocks?
that he's exploring is because he even there was a monologue about him saying like, even before you eat, like, are you even paying attention to what you eat? Are you actually enjoying the food, or are you eating mechanically? So like, I think that's where that side of that comes in, right? He's able to see the menu and be like, am I eating mechanically because I know what I like and I know what I want to order, or have I explored everything on the menu because I want to eat? I want to, you know, experience my food. So there was that factor.
That is true. I'll give you
Like
that.
he was exploring that. Like, which one are we? Are we eating fucking eggs and bacon every day for breakfast because we know that's what we like, and we're not even tasting food anymore? He said something along those lines. That we're not even tasting food anymore. We're just shoveling it in our mouths and going about our day. But I wanted to sit and analyze my food. I wanted to sit, you know. I also think, I will say this, and I think this is just, I know it's going to sound like I'm defending the Andre character a lot, but I fucking get it. I fucking get him in the sense that...
I mean, towards the end for sure. I was like, I'm understanding.
In the sense that I don't think Andre's presenting answers. I think he's presenting questions.
Yeah.
I think he's always presenting questions. I don't think he's ever confidently saying, no, you are wrong. I think he's confidently saying, all I know in truth is that I know nothing. You know, like that very philosophical thing is, all I know for certainty is that I know nothing.
And that now he's not going to play the charade of, pleasantries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because of that, and not to say that doesn't make him less of a dick. It just it's him saying there is a part of the film towards the kind of the top of the third act where he's basically saying like, it's funny that this film has acts, but it does. It might not feel that it does, but it does. At the top of the third act, he really just basically says like, I've got into a place in my life where I realized I wasn't living, and I just want to explore, and I want to know what that means, and I may never get the answer, but I'd rather be always in search for the answer than to always be in search for the comfortability.
By the way, credit to the writing in the sense that at the very beginning, a lot of these situations and details could have been explained a million different ways. I think just like it could have been shot a million different ways, but they were explained in enough of a way, and the filmmakers did use subtleties of like push-ins on the Andre character to emphasize certain moments, but with the detail and passion that you could see coming off of the actor when delivering these lines about experiences with the Beehive event, or like him going to Poland and all this kind of stuff, it's amazing how much I felt like I could visually see, and I was transported there to these places.
Absolutely.
That's why I think we all had like a very visceral reaction of like, what the fuck's going on? Like, what do you mean he's doing this? Or what like,
we had the same reactions Wally had, right? We had the same reactions.
Exactly.
Of,
like, we're all just kind of like, okay, wait a minute.
And Wally's an eccentric too, right? He is a theater head, and he's a writer, and he's lived in that same world, but he's also he's basically seeing a very successful peer of his go off the rails, and it's like, what happened to you, man? Like, it's one of those weird things. I also think it is important to note, I think this is a good place to put this comment as we explore it. But, and I have a question to pose for you guys that I can't stop thinking about. But Andre Gregory, again, these guys are not playing themselves, okay?
Yeah, obviously.
At best, they're playing a version of themselves. But Andre Gregory...
Excuse me.
Was that a sneeze?
That's a cough.
Andre Gregory was a successful theater director, and this was his first film ever.
Wow.
As an actor. And so he's a non-actor, at least by definition. He did some other shit. He did like The Last Temptation of Christ, which I didn't remember. He played John the Baptist in Last Temptation of Christ, or Scorsese later. But this was his first film ever. And essentially, Louis Malley was like, I think you're perfect for this. I need you to play this. And him and Wallace Shawn basically like worked with him to direct him, and basically Andre Gregory says like, the best piece of advice I got in terms of my character was from Wallace Shawn.
What did he say?
Speak rapidly.
Like, yeah.
And I didn't feel like, and he said, I didn't feel like I became the character of Andre until I did that. Nice. Because that automatically set me into like, I'm playing somebody. I'm playing somebody else, and the rapid talking makes me sound more confident in my acting and in the character. So that's why he's just like rambling, right? He's just like kind of going at it, but very
he's also playing with the
confidently.
whole, not trying to persuade him. It's just like, I'm telling you
this is how it is. This is how the information is. But I just wanted to note that
pretty good.
Kudos to the writing, but also kudos to the performance and the fact that he's not a fucking actor. Like he was not an actor before this. Also, the fact that he co-wrote the script has a lot to do with it, right? Yeah. I don't know and Andre Gregory as a director, as a human being, but what I do know is that the script came about because Andre Gregory went through a similar thing and was like, hey man, I've been out of the theater world for so long. Can we get together and write something? He talked to Wallace Shawn and was like, can we get together and like see what we can do together? Because I want to get back into this world, into the theater. I've been out of touch for so long. They got together, and Wallace Shawn was like, man, these are really interesting conversations about your journey, about my journey. Let's just record all of our conversations for like the next 2 weeks. Let's just see how that goes. I just want to record everything, and I want to transcript everything. He ended up coming out with like something like 1,200 pages worth of notes, right?
Oh my God.
And then he started tossing together a screenplay, and the screenplay came about 180 pages, which is, 3 hours, essentially 3 hours of a film. And they were shopped it around, and Louis Malley signed on and was like, hey, I love this thing. I think you should shave an hour off this thing. And he worked with them to kind of explore shaving down an hour off of it. And then we got the film we got. But this is directly coming from their experiences. as individuals. So I think Andre, to an extent, like I said, he's playing this exaggerated version of himself to an extent, right? But I think it's so impressive that you're going to whittle down this massive list of experiences to this cohesive kind of story, and they're just yours. And it's a film that has stood the test of time. I mean, I think it's just uberly impressive.
You know,
it
kind of reminded me of the Before trilogy.
I thought that in a sense.
Deep
I thought that in a sense.
conversation,
But the difference was, I think Richard Linklater took the Before trilogy and said, I'm not saying this is a bad film. It's a great film. This My Dinner with Andre is a great film. I think there's no proof of this. I tried looking it up and there's no correlation that I can find. I think Linklater saw My Dinner with Andre and was like, I'm going to take the conversation bits, the great conversation bits, and I'm just gonna make them walk around and give them action, and that'll automatically draw them even further.
That's exactly
in, right?
what I thought.
So I agree. I think they're distant cousins of each other for sure.
Yeah.
But I was just to your point, though, I think it's like a testament to their acting, a testament to the writing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's so funny. I know Austin and I joked around, and I think I even mentioned it to you, that like with Wallace's character, the first half of it, I was like, hey, I could do that. You know, like I could jump in. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, and then what happened? You know, like just those weird little fill up the space, the silence, so that way it could keep going and all that.
I gotta tell you though, the Wallace Shawn, the actor, we're used to seeing him in these weird comedic roles, right? These bit characters, these inconceivable, which he uses in this film. 9 years before The Princess Bride or whatever, and 8 or 9 years, and we're used to seeing him in that. I was telling Austin about like his role in Young Sheldon, or these
the original Haunted Mansion
comedy character actors, right? The original Haunted Mansion. He was in The Incredibles, and that voice is recognizable to a T, right? But we're used to seeing him in these kind of character parts, comedy character parts particularly, that I never thought I'd see him, the actor, as the Woody Allen character of a bit.
I never thought him like
almost the
character.
Travis Bickle of a bit to an extent, right? I mean, it's a weird kind of factor. He had done a couple of pictures. He was in All That Jazz. That's right. He was in Manhattan with Woody Allen. So like I'd never thought to see him in that type of role, and I thought that was just phenomenal use of that actor in that capacity.
And also, again, to his ability, right? Like a lot of the dialogue that he's mentioning, even the moments when he's talking about like living in the real world and all that, if his character came across the same way, the same confidence as Andre, it would have ruined his dialogue pieces.
Well, isn't it like the yin yang? One of them's a little bit adventurous and the other guy's more grounded.
Yeah, but I'm saying in the delivery, because you see in Andre, when he's describing these moments, I mean, it's almost prophetic, like the way it's just these bits of truths that he's realized. And like, again, it's somebody who's gone to the mountain and come back. When Andre's like, you could feel the moments when
when they bring up Everest?
Yeah, why would you go to Everest?
Like, why would you need to go to Everest? It's the equivalent of, what did he say? I'm
trying to remember.
It's the equivalent of something so mundane that
going to I think it was the cigar store.
Go to the cigar store next door. It's like you can find a whole world of adventure in a cigar store because of the types of cigars and where they come from and all this exploration. It's the equivalent of going to Everest. Everest is just a mountain.
In those moments, which I think as an audience member you want to agree with more, right?
Right.
You want to align with his values. You also see the kind of cracks of him trying to
protect his little life,
defend
protect
his life,
comfort, his egg. Absolutely.
Where it's not like even the parts that he speaks that I think reign true to the audience when they're watching it, and you really connect with,
because we're also protecting our little egg.
Yeah, and that's so interesting. Again, like I feel like it's also this delicate balance where seeing that vulnerability and thinking that's kind of how I would respond if somebody told me like, dude, you've been asleep for the past like 30 years. Like, you need to wake up and realize that you're not living life and what you're doing right now is wrong and that there's no value to what you're currently living.
So I can get it right. What is going on with Andre? Is he going through a midlife crisis? You already passed it? And
I feel like...
I think he just passed it, right? I think he went on this pilgrimage to find himself because the theater world just wasn't appealing to him anymore. Which, by the way, in my personal opinion, my personal analysis, I think is the central theme of this whole picture.
Okay.
Is because essentially he agreed with another playwright that was just like, I got away from the theater because I realized that life was just becoming one big play and everybody's just playing a part.
Yeah, everybody's
they're almost doing a better job at performing life.
Yeah, it's
than,
more.
Yeah, like why would you want to go to the theater? Yeah,
and faking like, oh, that was really great.
Man.
And it's like, no, but I do think that's the central theme of this picture because if you think about it, and I started picking it up in the lighting, and I try to point that out in certain sections to you guys. That things I was seeing. But I saw it way early in the film when they sit them down at the table. I started thinking to myself, like, man, I know this was 1980, but this is lit really badly. This is lit really badly. Like, you don't go to a restaurant and it's lit like a fucking table. Like, it's not lit like a play. And this film was lit like a play. And I started thinking about that, and I started seeing kind of what they were going in, and then they started going in about the performance and the role. And we talked a little bit about this in Asteroid City, right? And it's the direct correlation of the same theme. It's people are just playing a role. Yeah. And I started thinking that's why they're lit this way, because they're playing a role. They're two friends who want to impress each other because they haven't seen each other in years, and they're trying. Andre essentially is basically one-upping him.
Yeah, but not the other way around.
No. But the other. What is the life of an artist? Suffering, right? Mm-hmm. I get to also discuss how like it hasn't really worked out for me. I'm performing too, right?
Also, at the very beginning, the top of it, the performance of. I think I have a friend contacting me. He's down in his luck. That's the motivation.
And I get to be better with him in this scenario, right?
I'm playing the role of the supportive friend, like, hey, you look great. How's that going for you? Tell me about what's going on. Yeah. You can tell in his body language and everything, he's really not, he doesn't want to connect with it.
He's not real.
Yeah, he's not real until he is, until it's like, no, dude, like that role you're playing, it's not doing anything for me. Like you could keep asking me, like he even says, like, are you sure you want to keep hearing about these little trivialities? Because that's not connection. What becomes connection is when they talk about
these philosophical points. Right?
When they talk about these open-ended things where it's like, well, look at your life, or like, look at my life, where it's like, I feel this way, but am I really experiencing that? And I feel like, so again, he was playing a role. He was playing the role of like, oh, let me go help out my friend,
and even look at the blocking and the staging. I mean, quite literally staging. Their booth, is on a platform. Really, the booth is on the platform, and this is why I felt there was a few key moments where like the light wasn't moving as much as their position in the light was moving, and I didn't communicate that effectively while we were watching the film. But when he's basically getting back to his role, he's in perfect light. But when every time the waiter comes, the waiter and the bartender, every time they come, he's back in the real world in their shadow. He's back in the real world, and they're back like.
Oh, I see. I get what you're saying now.
When he's talking to Andre,
it's this
direct spotlight.
Yeah, and the same with Andre that you could see.
But hold on, are you talking about what we're seeing from him from the side, and then the mirror?
No, the mirror was always fully lit.
Exactly.
Right? But what kind of questions are they asking themselves? These introspective, let me reflect on my life questions. Yeah. That part of the interior brain, the subconscious is always lit, right? So I think that's why I think that was super intentional also.
It's also a very good shot that every time
I wanted to ask this.
Yeah, Wally was talking, you could very much see Andre's reaction. Yeah,
exactly.
And it was never the other way around. Or no.
But even then you're performing, right? Yeah. I think that feeds into my theory of like, even then you're reacting like, that is true. And you bullshit, you could read right through the bullshit. But I do have that theory that I think they're constantly performing until they're not. And when they're not, it's when we can finally get to the meat of it all, right? And I do think that these characters, even the waiter, I started analyzing the waiter and the bartender.
That's what I want to get to. Go for it.
Yeah, because I know you had a theory too.
Yeah.
My theory about these two guys are who they are in society. The waiter is much more elegant, much nicer,
and he doesn't give his own point of view because these guys seem like they're too arrogant.
He's not giving any reaction. He's just there to do his job, and he's kind and courteous. But the bartender is the rude one. The bartender has like a nastier face. They're two different guys. Yes, they're two different guys.
The one with white hair.
Yeah, so John Lanier, the waiter, and Roy Butler, the bartender. They're two different guys, and you see it specifically at the very end. But the bartender, right? Think of alcohol and that type of lifestyle, right? The nitty gritty kind of like I'm a jerk, and then you see that. I think that my theory gets fed even more because at the end you see him smoking a cigarette. The bartender.
For what reason?
He's the bartender?
Yes, yeah, he's a bartender.
it's
he's
the waiter
he's
that-
the one that brings them the amaretto. So he's the bartender.
No, but
No, the waiter's the one smoking the cigarette at the end.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Then maybe I'm thinking about but the waiter was the one delivering the food.
Can you show?
They did look very similar.
There's no pictures of Roy Butler
I'm
from
sure
the
there
thing.
is.
Um,
Not on
Just
IMDb.
my whole thing on him is that
Yeah.
he's got the whole experience and he's overhearing these guys talking every time he
That's
comes.
no,
interesting.
you know what?
And he's like,
That's
I
interesting.
could give my own take on this conversation because
But-
I'm overhearing this. But
Yeah,
it's like,
you see these
sound-
reactions.
these guys
You
sound
see
like,
these reactions.
they think they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They're not going to hear me out.
Yeah.
I had a completely different take on the
I love it, I love
butler, or the waiter. I feel like the waiter represents the perfect kind of antithesis to society and like what we do. I mean, the role is that you're just supposed to go in, ask these people what they want, and you deliver it properly. It doesn't matter your own perspective and opinions and things. You're just supposed to serve your role in society. And I feel like you're not supposed to think beyond that. You're not supposed to question
Where's the
what
other
is it that you're
character?
serving,
And the
what's
whole
your
role
opinion.
thing, I never thought about it. Okay,
Most
Yeah.
of the time they're together in the
Yeah.
same scenes.
So it's kind of that. It's like you're not really supposed to serve anything beyond just catering towards that role, because as a waiter, especially in these high class restaurants,
Right.
they're not asking for an opinion. They're not asking for
No,
a
that's
present.
the table, dude.
Damn it,
And
There's
then every
two
time
characters
he
when they
makes
come
eye
to the table
contact
every
with
time.
them, that
Not
kind
that
of eye
bartender.
contact, I feel like begs. Okay, well, what's your take? Like when I make eye contact with you, when you make eye contact with anybody, you're having a connection. But to avoid having to have a real connection and to avoid ever having to step out of that role,
Yeah.
he looks away.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
they're,
but wait,
they're
hold
serving
on.
as a buffer. I mean,
Yes.
the waiter's serving as a buffer.
But
right?
since everything has a meaning, right? Like you said that everything
Yeah.
has kind of a meaning. Wouldn't like a waiter be kind of like, I could serve a purpose here? And, kind of like,
Yeah. And that's
I'm
that's
old.
us.
That's why
Yeah.
there's an old guy here doing this because
They have a whole but they had that whole conversation at the beginning that
Yeah.
it's this weird thing that everybody in life walks around living thinking that they
Yeah, I
have a
didn't even think about
purpose, and in that purpose, as long as they serve it, they will find success and happiness and all that. But really, it's kind of like, well, what is that doing? What is it serving you?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
as much as Wally was trying to say, like, oh, once you find that purpose, then like it doesn't mean anything. So because every purpose is as valuable as the other one.
Yeah.
Later on, he backtracks and he's like, I just want to live my life. I know exactly what I need to do. I have a little book that tells me, and then I enjoy crossing it out
Yeah,
and
I
living
really
that
felt
life.
that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We all walk around feeling like, oh, well, I have a purpose, and
They're the
that
two ends of the
helps
spectrum,
us
right, of-
ground everything.
They're the two
kinda see
very
that.
broad ends of the spectrum in terms of the human condition, and that's what I
Yeah.
really like about this film. I mean, Wallace Shawn was kind of asked, like they're constantly asked, "Are you guys playing yourselves?" Right? They were like, "No." No, it was like if they said something along the lines of like, if we could remake this film, we'd play the opposite roles because we can. Like that wasn't the intention. The intention is like says the reason I know I'm not playing myself is because that character is driven by fear. And Andre isn't, right? And that's
Yeah.
not necessarily
Yeah.
who they are, right? Especially as creatives, you can't
Damn, that's deep.
consistently be driven by fear. But you do have to constantly ask yourself, and I love films that can present it that way. As you said, Castro, I mean, I just explored that theme in my own film. The last film we just finished was who's wrong and who's right, and the answer is nobody. And it depends who you think is right or wrong. And that depends
Well,
on where you are in life.
My
right
theory
now.
towards the end is kind of, I think Andre kind of got the best of it.
Sure.
Because at the end,
Because
he's kind
at
of
the
going.
very least, he made him think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at
Yeah.
the end, I love the whole ending where he takes the taxi, like, I'm going to treat myself to a taxi. And he's just
Yeah.
going, seeing the
And he
storefront.
says, he's like, I have a memory attached to every single building,
So I think
You know,
Andre got to
here
him.
we and it's very mundane things, right? He's like, I bought a suit with my father in here.
I had a
I
soda
had
pop.
an ice cream soda in this one, and it's like, yeah, so it's almost like because
he's still
I
in-
never left.
Yeah, he's
because
still
I
in that,
never left.
dream, whatever. State.
In that
Yeah.
dream world, right? It's very, very great. I will say this: the question that doesn't leave me alone when it comes to this picture is,
Oh, I love these.
logistically and scale and execution are completely different. Let me just preface this when I ask this question. But thematically, I think My Dinner with Andre in 2001: A Space Odyssey are asking the exact same questions.
Purpose?
Humanity, why are we here? Why do we exist?
Yeah.
Where are we going? Where have we been? It's the exact same thing. It's just executing the exploration of the human condition on opposite spectrums, logistically and on scale. But I mean, it's the exact same question. It's posing the exact same questions. Think about how is a robot going to get the best of me? That's what he's asking. You know, that's what he's asking, and also even just the scene in the bedroom with 2001: Space Odyssey, and the bed and the I forget the name of the object, but
monolith.
The obelisk, is it obelisk?
Monolith.
I think it's monolith.
You might be right. Yeah. The monolith, right? He's what the representation of what? The representation of life or lack thereof, and where are we going, and who created this, and what's the point? And he's just sitting there in his old age, wondering what the fuck was the point of all of this? What's the point of this whole journey in humanity, and how far ahead of time did we go? And then I think in their scenario, they're also going through that, but time travel is a lot slower for them, right? They're analyzing their 40 years and going, did I just waste my life? Did I live mechanically, And if I did, I want to change that. And Wallace's point is like, no, dude, you want to throw away all of Western civilization just because you think you're living a mundane life? Like, no, that you wouldn't get away from this comfort, the electric blanket or whatever. I just think they're posing the exact same questions.
So I feel like we got with Wallace.
My question was whether you guys agreed or not.
Oh, okay.
I think so. I think it's interesting in film, novels, music, everything. It's always this deep exploration of the human experience and what does it mean to be here? What does it mean to feel these emotions? Like when we watch, romances, we're asking the question of like, what is true love and what is the value of it? Is
it real?
I mean, even as simple as like when you watch a horror film, a lot of times everybody I've talked to who watches a horror film, they always walk away like, how would I have responded? And that's always a question of like,
very true.
Do I have the aptitude to sustain my own life in this situation? Do I feel like I'd be lost? I'd be a victim? Am I going to be the hero? Like nice. When we watch like zombie films, you're always thinking like, am I going to be the badass who's going to go and save everybody? And then can I do that? I love, I forgot who, I was listening to Mark Maron a while back, and he was in a hotel room. He had to do a morning radio show, and he just had a rough night. And then he tried calling the front desk, and he says, because you always call the front desk, and they're always there. That's their job. They have to always be there. And they didn't answer. And his first thought was, fuck, zombies. Because he was like, if they're not there, something's wrong. End of civilization could be down there. I could go down there. And his first thought was like, I'm not ready to lead. Like, I'm not an alpha male. I'm not the guy who's going to go and like charge up everybody. Like, I'm just really hoping I go downstairs right now. There's a bunch of zombies. And for some reason, this absolute god of a man says, come on, Mark, I'll lead the way. And then I just have to follow him till I die. Like, that's all I really want out of this whole situation. And, even in those situations, we're constantly posing the questions of life and what does it mean? What do these emotions and feelings mean? So
life, love, and the pursuit of happiness.
I think the big similarities between like 2001 and this one is the idea of the after, the idea of like, okay, with all
the
this,
after or the purpose.
The after,
both, right? I mean, the during and the purpose. Right?
No. The reason it's not purpose, and the reason I use the term after is because, again, they use purpose almost in a dirty sense of just like objective. Like, let's say if I knew that like purpose is of like in a soccer game, right? Your purpose is to get the ball in the goal. The reason I say the after is like, okay, so now what? You won a game. Now what?
I think they both explore the after, but I think they both explore the purpose too.
We don't get the after though.
No, we do. Do you feel like Andre's even describing a purpose, or is he describing?
He's describing the exploration of the purpose, right? He's describing the exploration of why. I think 2001: A Space Odyssey is also.
But I don't feel like Andre is trying to find like this singular thing that he needs to be doing.
He is. He is very much so. He's exploring the how.
I feel like he's exploring present.
And he's saying the how. How am I enjoying life? How am I experiencing life?
I think he's past that.
No, I think he very much even admits like, whoa, I'm still
Nice.
in the I know. I'm still in the how. I'm still in the exploration of like
You still asking questions?
yeah, he's still absolutely he's still, because basically he was saying like, yeah, I knew all the answers when I was directing theater. I knew all the answers where I wanted my life to go, but it made me like I wasn't as happy. And now I know I'm happy because I'm exploring.
Not necessarily know the answers, but I'm still exploring.
but I'm exploring. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
It kind of came off like he was knowing.
Yeah.
He thought he knew the answers.
one thing we know to an extent, right? One thing we know for sure, I think, with the exploration of this was they say you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been, and I profoundly believe that.
That's a Drake song, bro.
Drake got it from somewhere else, but I don't think they're exploring that as much here. I don't think they're exploring the where we've been. I think they're exploring the where we've been almost doesn't matter. That's what gets thrown out the window.
You know what?
What is explored is what about now? You know, which I think is what you're defining as the after. What about now? What
Yeah.
about this point of my life, this midlife crisis, right?
Yeah.
What about the now? Which I think is the
Okay.
the purpose,
Yeah.
the exploration, the current,
after.
and the after is when it's all said and done.
One thing I did like is in the dialogue, they're capturing this feeling of the passive nature of living your life like a robot, right? Like they're constantly just saying like, oh, you're living your life asleep and you're living your life, numb to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I think if they hadn't inserted these dialogue beats, it would have just been like, oh, well, what's the problem? I love how much they brought up these like references to like Nazi Germany and like Holocaust.
The fine line between this is healthy, this is not.
Yeah, and I mean, there's such.
Well, they also talked about the animalistic sense of the human and what defines us. How different are we from animals, and what does it matter?
But it's so drastic and stark of a conversation topic where he says, like, what's the difference between me saying hi to my doorman?
Right.
And me being a slave owner. And it's this
Yeah.
crazy thing where
No, but
we're all
it
kind of backed
also-
up.
yeah.
But then they bring it down to these points of like, there's no real connection.
Yeah.
This guy is just there to serve me, and I am never going to value him above self. Yeah, because I just find
Above
my
his
relation
purpose
to
in my
him.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every time I address him, I'm never addressing him
As the
at an
human.
eye level.
Yeah.
I'm addressing him as the thing that serves me so I can get to my next spot.
Yeah.
And I mean, like how many people go through their lives thinking like, sure, I don't really like acknowledge this or that.
We talked
you know?
about that with somebody who we had a meeting with today who I thought was really interesting. She was basically telling us how she worked with this big actor.
And she met deacons.
She did meet Roger Deakins. But no, she was telling us how she worked with this big actor. And upon their first meeting, he thought she was the director of photography of this picture. And he thought she was just like some PA or something. So, they're kind of waiting around for, the set's ready to go.
Oh, that's...
And he kind of just comes up to where she's at, and she's sitting like on top of a yacht, kind of just hanging out, waiting for, things to start rolling. And she's ready and she's early and stuff. So he's like, well, yeah, I'm ready. So I guess I'll just wait with you. And he goes up to where she's at. And she gets up to be respectful, like to shake his hand and, hi, how are you? Like, And he was like, no, stay sitting down. It's fine. And he was like, at first she was like, okay. And then eventually she's like, well, I've been sitting for a while. I'm just going to stand up. He's like, no, you need to stay sitting down. And he was, she was just like, this is weird. And the more they interacted, the more she's like, oh, he doesn't know who I am. He just thinks I'm some PA or something. So she gets up and he's like, no. I was like, no, I'm going to get up. Hi, I'm so-and-so and I'm the director of photography. And he was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then it was one of those things where she basically said, the reason I did it wasn't for any type of
some undercover boss.
class thing, or it wasn't, no, but it wasn't for any type of title thing. It was just like, I'm going to be at your level. I'm going to meet you at your level. I'm going to meet you eye to eye. And I'm going to make you understand that we're equal in this situation and we're going to be cool. And he's like, and then after that, we're like best friends on the set. I was like,
cool.
That's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic. And that's again, where are you meeting?
Strategy for sure.
Where are you meeting in terms of the levels, right? And I think that's like a constant kind of cat and mouse game for these two, and for society in general, right?
Do you think there's any bigger thing to be explored on the fact that they're playing both the like gods and the servants of their own artistic field.
Man, I love the example he gave of the concentration camp and the people who build their own prison. And
that New
all
York
the guards and the
New
prisoners,
York is
you know.
just the modern like concentration camp where now they're both
the version of where the prisoners build this thing and they're so proud of it. They're so proud of this thing they don't realize it's their own prison.
Yeah,
and they're both the guards and the prisoners in the situation. They could let themselves out. Then they're exploring this in the film because they're all like, "Well, should we just leave New York? New York is just this decrepit old place that just makes everybody miserable, and this is why we're like this." And he's like, me and my wife have genuinely explored things. And then he says, "But then once we leave the prison, where are we gonna go?" It's kind of like, where do we end up anyways? The whole world is heading that direction anyway. So it's like, but yeah, it's great. I think it's great. I think it's
I was
great
also going to add in the whole idea that when you look at like Wally's character, at least at the beginning, where he says, "I was a playwright," and I mean, being a playwright, you are creating the story.
Absolutely.
You are at the steering wheel, that you are driving things forward. But then that wasn't really happening. So then he got into acting. So that way, he could do something on the side until one of his plays picked up. And then on top of that, it was kind of like, but that's not really panning through. So then he's, doing these odd little ends here and there, or these little bit roles. But I mean, it's almost like to be going from the place of you are the master controlling everything, and you're trying to be like at the helm. But then you're also willing to accept, like, okay, I guess I'm not meant to be at the helm. I'm not meant to be that character who leads things in. So I'll just be the little servant and, a little like piggy that goes wherever I need to go and all that kind of stuff. And again, dropping himself down, then he's just playing into the numb flow of society and all that kind of stuff.
Thing, which is why that ending is so crucial and so important for him to be like, I'm going to treat myself to a cab and just think about all this and think about how. And then I love the final line, right? Like, I got home and I forget his wife's name or girlfriend's name.
Gabby.
It's not Gabby.
Yeah.
Debbie.
Yeah. That's why I said Debbie.
I thought you said Gabby.
Yeah, I thought I heard
no,
you say
no,
Gabby.
you're
Yeah,
no, no.
Debbie. So Debbie.
It smells like Debbie, probably.
The law, you did not say Debbie.
Yeah,
You said Debbie.
I said Debbie.
Bro, I saw your whole eyes and you're like,
Whatever,
you're trying to
Debbie.
fix it
Dude,
in that
I'm the one
moment.
with the headphones on.
Yeah, and I'm the one saying Debbie. So here
anyways,
we are.
I got home.
It's very different from D.
I did say Gabby.
But the line is, I got home to Debbie and I told her about my dinner with Andre.
Oh, dude, yeah.
That's it. That's the end of the line, end of the film. But just this exploration of like, been there, done that, and the world is my oyster almost. Like, what next? I think it's great. I think it's phenomenal.
Is this? And let me direct this towards Castro.
That's me.
Castro.
Dude, you
Say
said
it
that
with your
like
throat.
you're from fucking Iowa or some shit.
Castro.
Hey, Fidel.
Castro.
You have to say it with like, this even works. Castro. You can even try that.
Well, you said it in English
Castro.
accent also. It's Castro.
Well, yeah, but he's not gonna understand
Hey,
that.
Castro, hey.
Castro.
There we go. I mean, that's better.
What did you? Do you need
So-
a lozenge?
Yeah. So Castro.
There we go.
Was this an optimistic or a pessimistic film?
This, for the people that don't know out there, can we get an entry into Google? What are those?
Are you a cynic or you're a romantic? Right, in
No,
this
no,
situation.
no.
What-
He had fish, remember?
Oh,
Oh, he's Piscatania.
Yeah.
Fish.
was this? Do you think?
No, is this, are you the cynic or are you the romantic? Do you think
Did this end on a happy note or a sad note?
Oh, I think it ends on a happy note.
Okay.
Yeah, I think especially for Wally, he kind of has a realization that okay, I might not be living to my fullest, right? Not necessarily for Andre. Andre, I think he's.
Do you think he's gonna stay sad? Do you think this is with all kind of a pointless
I
dinner?
think he's doomed with the knowledge he's been graced with.
Yeah, usually those people that have been through a lot are usually grumpy and.
Oh, also, what's the point of the dinner?
Is there a theory behind it, or is just
There is. there's
or the
literature
meaning
on
is.
it.
I think so. I think
What's the point of the dinner?
the for one,
What-
I think films like this are the most honest
I love
depiction and
Booth,
exploration of the human condition.
heavy
So,
dialogue. Yeah,
with that notion, I think when you're eating with somebody and when you see somebody eat,
Yeah, when you're casually masticating.
right, it tells you a lot about that person.
really.
Just on an animalistic sense. right?
What do you mean?
How someone eats, what manners they do or don't have,
Well,
how they approach their
me
meals.
as a person, I try to avoid that because I don't want to make the person feel uncomfortable.
You try to
but-
avoid what? Yourself? How you
No, just
eat
like
normally?
trying to analyze the guy. I'm making just straight up eye
I
contact and be
understand,
like,
but
hey, what's
that-
going on
but
with you? I'm not
but-
like,
But
no,
no, but
eats with his left
when
hand.
you go on a
That's kinda
date,
weird.
when you go on a date, is there not an eating component of the date? Because
Where,
if you're
like,
not,
people eat, or what do you mean?
no, I'm
yeah,
saying like,
component?
let's say you're going on a date with somebody, like a first date. If there's not an eating component of the date, you're living kind of in a fantasy.
Oh, I see what you're
It's
saying. I see
fake
what you're saying.
because it
It's
is
kinda-
not. It's not realistic to think that a person just exists. They never
Yeah.
have to like eat. They never have to like drink
I mean,
anything.
you get a lot of that down the line too, right? Like, yeah.
But the whole thing is that they say that eating or the action of watching somebody eat something is the most humbling and humanizing activity you can do. Yeah, because it doesn't matter who you are. You could be the king of the world, or you could be a peasant. You both have to eat, and that's the most like grounding
That
factor.
is, yeah, I was
Foundational
kind
level.
of getting to that. Yeah.
So that's why a lot of times when you go on like a first date, you eat somewhere because it helps psychologically. You see the human, in front of you.
Well, I don't see it like that. I see it as we have something to do instead of just not having something in front of us.
No, but I mean,
it's-
you could go
it's-
bowling.
I understand
Yeah.
philosophically, right?
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
You could go to putt and
But
do that
it
whole
wouldn't be
thing.
the same as dinner, right? Because dinner, it's a little bit
Dinner,
more.
it's
like you
very,
said, vulnerable.
it's very
like-
direct. It's kind of, it's almost scary.
And also, like you,
Intimate kinda,
whether you like it or
yeah.
not, man. Like
I get
we're men, and
intimate with my
when we
food.
take a girl out,
play
it's
with it.
like
But I know what
it's
you're
like
saying,
you're
though.
judging certain things, right? Like, yo, she orders the steak and not the chicken. This bitch, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just-
Who orders ribs?
Oh,
in the
my-
you know what I'm
first
saying?
date?
No, but that's what I mean. Like, even like I was also like, by the way, they were ordering all this shit, and I kept thinking to myself, like, Andre's broke. I mean, Wally's broke. Like, what the fuck? How's the fuck? He's in this fancy restaurant. He's ordering drinks. What the fuck is he gonna do? I was nervous for him. And then, but one of the kindest things you can do is pay for somebody's meal, right? And that's exactly what Andre did.
Andre did, yeah.
You know, that's a tale of his character at the tail end. He just like pulled out his wallet and I got it. You know, like. I don't know. It's very telling. It's very telling when you eat with somebody, especially for the first
I never
time.
thought about that. Wow. I guess, yeah, it is.
That's because he
Kind of
never
a-
eats with us.
That's true. It's a good point.
I
No,
wonder
yeah,
where
he
was
doesn't
tonight.
like to watch us eat.
No, he doesn't like.
Because then he has to connect with us.
Yeah,
Castro
then I
is the
gotta
type of person that will say, "What are you guys getting for food? Oh, we're getting this. Nah, I'm good." And then he'll come with that food. Like he just came
He did that with
minutes.
Wing Daddy last week.
Everybody out there, do you know what you're going to eat at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 6, 7 o'clock at night?
The day before?
came with wing
No, right? Or the day before, it's even worse.
No, but what I
Castro,
mean,
we checked with you. Hey, we're gonna get Wing Daddies. Do you want anything? This is like an hour before you showed up.
An hour before, I don't know what I'm going to eat.
in an hour.
It's until my stomach's like, yo, we got to eat.
Yo,
That's
we
when I
got
start
we
eating.
need wing daddies. No, but what I mean is like Castro like won't order his food. I was like, no, I'm ordering my food on my own. Like I don't even know what I'm getting. No, but that's true. I
always
do.
been
I
like
do
that,
think.
He
I,
eats after you order in his car before he gets down.
Yeah, I do
have
think
done
the
that.
meal component is a weird thing, right? It's like the equivalent.
Very
It's
interesting.
the equivalent of like dog. Have you ever seen a dog? Like that's why like a lot of vets will say when your dog, especially if you have a big dog, don't put their bowl on the ground. Put it elevated because if a big dog is doing this, it's not aware of its surroundings and it's going to freak out and it's going to bite somebody because if you put their food at their level, they can easily feel safe.
Oh,
They don't
okay.
have to feel threatened that they're like their head is all the way down here and this and that. So like
Yeah, it's a very vulnerable position.
yeah, so like it just on an animalistic sense, like
Mammalist.
Is that why
animalistic.
we don't put the lowest food on the ground?
That's exactly why.
Haven't you noticed that mine's on like a little tiny tray?
Yeah, we don't want them to
That
feel
like
threatened.
it's only a foot up, but at least like when I bend down, like my neck doesn't hurt anymore.
Anyways, ratings.
Mine did change.
Yeah.
I'll give it an 8.7.
And that's not because I'm very easily convincible.
No. You should. I mean, it's
No, man, mine definitely went up. I'll put it up to like an 8.6. I'm a very...
from
8.1.
8.1. Yeah, dude, I didn't realize how much I love dialogue heavy scenes. And then my favorite parts are like the dinner scenes. Like I'm a big like a conversation in a booth. That's
Yeah.
my dream scene.
yeah.
So yeah, I kind of liked it. Yeah.
I'll go up to a 9, 8.9 to a 9. The short answer is I'm going to be thinking about this film for a while, and
Oh,
I think,
yeah.
you know these
For sure.
again, man. It's not easy to do. Trust me, for a guy who's constantly rooting for dialogue pieces and and
Not
to
easy.
engage
to
you,
engage you, right? To engage you and ask these quote unquote philosophical questions, or at the very least these humanistic questions. It's hard to do,
provoking,
man.
sure.
It's hard. It's
Like,
super
let me
hard.
just add in a really quick thing
Yeah.
before we finish off. That's why I was so impressed at the camera work slowly pushing in on Andre's character when he was talking about that ritual that he did, where he says, "Oh, for Halloween they always do something crazy," and then he basically went through this very theatrical process of life and death, where then it was like, okay, you write your will, these people blindfold you and carry you, you don't know where you're going, then you just see a glimpse of yourself being buried and you just feel it, and then afterwards
buried
they
alive,
bring
just
you
enough.
out and you see this big flash of light, and then you're all dancing and stuff like that. And it was this whole thing of like, if that happened to me, if I went through all of life, what was I supposed to get at the very
And
end
he
of
was
it?
like, I never wanted to do anything like that again in my life. I wanted to live.
Yeah.
It's like a very
But I mean,
quick change.
that story,
Yeah.
as an audience member, I mean, we're all just captivated by it.
phenomenal.
We're,
I mean,
we're
yeah.
so drawn in, and we're just, there are these details of somebody else's life and
Yeah.
what they went through, but you're right there, and then the camera pushes in, and you're face to face with.
Yeah.
And even
these
more
stories.
impressive is he's never done an acting role.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just with that little tip that this guy
Oh
gave
my
him, like,
goodness.
Terrific, man. Terrific.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
What did Scorsese say about the film?
I don't know.
Can you call him real quick? Just
Yeah, let me give him a
just-
call.
I just
Hey,
wanna
Marty.
know real quick.
I know it's 2 in the morning in New York right now, but
What's up, Carlos?
I love that he said it with an accent too.
I was gonna do a worse one. I was like, hey,
He's actually in South America, dog.
know who he is?
He's
This Scorsese
visiting.
impression, you do it pretty good.
I don't do it.
Nachos, like when you do the entourage.
Oh,
He's
the
visiting South
entourage thing. Oh my
Africa.
gosh.
hey, it's your boy Marty.
It's recreation of
What are we shooting?
What are you guys doing?
I don't accept your credits.
You're an actor. You're an actor, and you're good at impressions. This is not Marty.
Did you just hear him?
Yeah.
Unaccept your credits.
Anyways, yeah. My dinner with Andre.
Star Wars isn't a real movie. Carlos, pick up phone.
For Wall Street 2.
What's your Marty
So we
impression?
come
Wait.
down for. I don't have a Marty impression.
Dude, you
Yes, you
have
do.
to have one, bro. You do
Oh,
one every
that's
day
not
in the
an
shower.
impression.
Come on, bro.
No, because I'm never gonna go up to Martin Scorsese the day I meet him and be like, "Hey, you know what I can do?" No,
Great impression of you.
You know,
What the
maybe
fuck is- that
there's
might impress a De Niro. That won't impress a Marty.
they're just like hello up there. You know,
Bro, you
it's a
don't
connection. They're distant, yet they're
That's
together.
pretty good.
There you go.
That's pretty good.
Now do Castro.
Hey fellas,
That's me, bro. Hey, fellas.
Anyways, this is not a Marty film.
a lot of women and a lot of beer right now.
I got a beer belly.
Bring the women and vodka.
You know,
He's just
Next
rushing
week.
now. Anyways,
next week
that
Blues
was
Brothers.
My dinner with Andre. Next week we're gonna tackle Mr. Austin Young's pick. We're gonna be tackling. Is it David O. Russell's film? Who directed it? I think it's David O. Russell. I might be wrong.
Can I give one movie that kind of reminded me of this one, too?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man.
And can you search it real quick, too?
No.
My
Blues
my bad.
Brothers.
It's called The Sunset Unlimited.
Sunset Unlimited.
It's with Tommy Lee Jones and Samuel L. Jackson. And it also takes... This one takes part in
I forgot we're doing that.
a kitchen table.
Like a film. too.
Oh yeah. I just
It just,
Oh,
this
he
one just
directed
reminds me
it.
a lot.
Oh shit! It's a Cormac McCarthy thing.
Oh, for real?
Cormac McCarthy wrote the book, I guess, that it's based on.
It's basically the same thing. They're just having a deep conversation
That's
about
really
what's
cool.
the meaning of life, and it's a little bit more towards God. Like, do you believe in God or
Sure.
not? But it kind of reminded me of that, just having a deep conversation.
Yeah, it's very
that's
cool.
really cool.
Yeah.
You got one?
Oh man, I feel like
This one's
the
really good.
before was a great one that I
Yeah,
feel like.
I mean, you can see the
but
hints
I
of it.
feel like the before is really good for also exploring like the human condition when it comes to like connection with somebody else.
Yeah, through relationships.
I feel like another one that's really weird.
There's a
but
line in this film that encapsulates that. The line where they're like, if you feel like I have to go to here, but if you feel like you can find that in the room and there's life between you and another person, then yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
that's it.
explore that. And that's what the Before trilogy is. Like, can you explore two people, one room, and whether there is life and love between
Yeah.
you or not? You know, I thought that was really cool. But again, that's one line of My Dinner with Andre.
I'd also say if you feel like you don't ever see this premise working, like the whole concept of just a person in a room having a conversation with somebody else ever being a good movie, like if you just say, I don't get it. I don't get it. Like I forgot if it was YouTube or where, but we saw a review like it is the most boring film I've ever seen.
Because they didn't get past the first 10 minutes, I bet you.
Yeah, I mean,
Give it a try.
No, but
Because I was looking up the score, and then on the Google search, a Reddit link came up, and it said, My Dinner with Andre is the most boring film ever.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're that audience member, which is okay, if you're like, watch a clip of this or look around, because if you don't get it, and that's absolutely fine, watch Locke. I think Locke, and we've reviewed it on the podcast, shows...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'd say it shows the potential in this, and then
This is more of a one person, but it's still having a conversation with yourself.
Well, it's having a conversation, and then it's also, I think Locke's a lot more... It's funny. I mean,
it's action.
I think, it feels like an action film, even though there's no...
no, I know.
Yeah.
But because of the fact that, like, there's the intense music, and then he has these, like, monologues where at first he's trying to be very warm,
man, I wanna
and then
read
he's
this.
being like, you need to...
I want to read this, and I want to counter it with something Roger Ebert says, and I want to. We can wrap it up with that.
Ebert said something about the film?
About My Dinner with Andre.
Dude, this is so fucking...
Roger Ebert was the ultimate
It mostly boils down
champion of
to
My Dinner with
Andre Gregory
Okay.
saying something like,
By the
Waller
way,
says,
do
tell
you
me
know the
about
spine
it.
number, the criteria?
I don't. I never memorized the spine numbers.
All right.
479.
Very cool.
You could tell this guy is
You
like
want me
probably
to-
in high school still.
Do you want me to play the role, or
Yeah, I mean,
give me a cue?
I'll read it.
The guy's
It's not a big-
username is Shuma Gorath.
All right, Shuma, what you got to say about My Dinner with Andre?
Well, if I'm being honest, I don't know if I can handle My Dinner with... No, I'm trying.
I don't know if you can even call this a movie. It's 2 hours of Wallace Shawn and Andre Gregory sitting and talking over dinner. It mostly boils down to Andre Gregory saying something, then Wallace saying, tell me about it. Then Gregory tells a 30-minute story, and Shawn either goes, wow, or says, what happened next, which leads to another story. I can see this working as a play in a small theater, but by God, this movie is like watching paint dry. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because of the overwhelming positive critic reviews, but I'm convinced that this is one of those movies people only say they like in order to seem like they're smarter because they get it. Is that us? By the way,
Oh
we
my
get
God.
it.
Bro, we
I have
just
no
explained
idea why this is in the comedy genre either. Nothing funny happens. There's no amusing awkwardness or anything between the two main characters.
It's
Well,
kinda like
Shuma.
Sharknado, bro.
Well, I think, again, for this person, I would love for them to watch
Well,
Locke.
tell me more about it.
There's a comment under. Wow, tell me more. Love it.
And then what
Is
happened?
that what happened? Oh
my God.
We like to think that we've developed our palate.
Yeah,
in
for
sure.
sure.
story
Definitely
and
getting a
story.
better palette for sure.
You also
And,
have to be the kind of person that I think
He's going through some shit.
No,
you
no,
know, I mean, at
but
the
that
same
has these
time.
conversations yourselves. Like
Yeah,
I feel
oh,
like
absolutely,
we've
absolutely.
all gone
100%.
through conversations where it's kind of like, am I being present? I mean, we have that joke all the time where, I mean, when one of us is doing something, if
On
we're
their
playing a game,
phone or
yeah,
something.
if we're sending a meme or playing a game or we're not responding, like
We're like,
then
"Be
it's kind
here."
of like, yeah, exactly. It's like be here, and I mean.
It's not a joke, Dalal. You need to be here.
Dude, it's so funny.
Be
That
present.
it's a comedy and it's also kind of a drama when we're arguing. So yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, well,
But,
look, I'll say this just in counter of that dumb
I'll say
review.
something
you're
too.
stupid and you feel stupid.
The late great Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel
And Gene
his
Simmons.
partner Gene Siskel. Yeah, 2 thumbs up. He gets it.
Gene Simmons gives 2 thumbs up and a tongue.
Roger Ebert basically and Gene Siskel called this the best film of certainly of 1981, and Roger Ebert reviewed it 10 years later and said this is the best film of the 1980s. Period.
Now, at the time, did it get much love?
So this is why I say that Ebert was the champion. This film played for 6 weeks at a couple New York theaters, and it was about to close after 6 weeks. Nobody was paying attention. Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel watched it. They reviewed it, and they gave it a raving review.
Told people.
And the film played in theaters for 6 months after that.
Oh, wow. So they kind of gave
They
it a little
were
push
solely
up.
responsible. And again, 10 years later, like after one of the remasters, Roger Ebert was like, I love how he opens and closes his review because he opens it and closes it the same. They're bookends of the title. He opens a review by saying, someone recently asked me if I've ever seen a film without any cliches. And I had to think for a while. And I finally came up with the answer that My Dinner with Andre is a film with no cliches. And I mean, in its originality, especially in the 1980s, right?
cliches on
I mean, there's no. I mean, it's
There's no fluff.
No fluff.
It's very much. This is what the film is
Straight
like.
to it.
He also says in this review, the synopsis is in the title. Dinner with Andre.
Dinner with Andre. An old friend.
Dinner with an old friend and exploring these themes that we both have, and we're both in different positions in life, and it's not trying to be anything.
And that's
it's
probably
not.
what people think is boring. Probably
It's not. It's not trying to be something it's not.
Yeah.
You
I
know
there's no cliche. Maybe a cliche now of people trying to emulate this,
Right.
And even make fun of it to an extent, but. What cliche?
I have
there
a
is.
really, really. Maybe it's an odd comparison, but the
wanna hear
last
this.
time I had this feeling about a film and I guess the topic of life and where's it all headed is with the Apu trilogy. I feel like that was a very.
Oh,
it was a very like when you just look at it on its onset,
Pure
it's
cinema.
just very real. It's just this reality. It's like that's what happens. People die. People live, and it's
people
it's this-
hate. There's people who hate realism, right?
Yeah.
There's people who hate hyper realism
because film is also kind of an escapism, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
For a lot
And
of people,
that's to be respected.
Yeah.
But it's also meant to pose the why do you allow William Faulkner or Cormac McCarthy or somebody to pose these questions in literature and poetry, and why do you adore Shakespeare after he's been dead for 600 years, but you can't accept that cinema is going to do the same? I mean, cinema is going to pose these questions, and that's how powerful it is.
Good way to put it,
Why
yeah.
shouldn't we allow that to be? Cinema's the most powerful form of art, I think, and why shouldn't we
You tell.
explore that? So my dinner with Andre very much does so. And again, if people aren't, but there is also, I'm willing to bet that this person, maybe I'm reaching, this person on Reddit wasn't ready to hear all of this, wasn't ready to explore that in their own
When
lives.
this comes out,
Probably,
we should go comment this podcast on that post.
Still too green for the experience
spicy.
of life. Huh?
No, I also like. Again, this is to theater people when they talk about like the whole. I was really. I'm still interested on your perspective when it comes to like an actor and the idea of like playing life and you're trying to find the reality in yourself, but then when you get past a role and it just becomes you and you are the role, then what does all that mean? And I think for a lot of people that can seem very like it can seem very like fluffed up, kind of like going to like those frou-frou restaurants. Like if like again,
But
with
even
my
the
father,
fufu restaurant, the fufu restaurant in this film is a commentary. Like
Exactly.
he's asking, right? He opens up the film with being like, why did Andre pick this restaurant?
Like-
I remember him having weird tastes and different tastes. And it's like, it's just, he's trying to live. He's
Yeah,
trying to live a
no.
little more.
He's
It's not so much about the high class factors as much as it is about the
Just trying.
the moment,
the moment,
because
yeah.
you feel like
and how much importance, how much reverence am I giving to this moment? He very much values your opinion. He values your friendship. He wants to treat you to a nice dinner. That's saying something too, So yeah, and I mean, there's tons to dive into.
I know that my father will never watch this with me. my dad will be like, why isn't one of them shooting something, and why is it
Has
just
it tried it?
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
yeah? Like I came to watch
Schwarzenegger.
Planet. What is it? Planet Exploders 7.
And then since he's like lean and buff, now he's gonna take off his shirt. I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
And then just goes and punches somebody in the face.
Would you think he would like it if you give it a try, or you just know this is not his style?
You know what? Okay, this is also why it leans into my sensibilities, and I'll try to wrap this up quick.
Yeah.
I have people in my own life that are Andre, and my
Why do you
father.
look at me when you say that?
Because you gotta touch
My
No, he told me when we were screening the film, he's like, and that when you see Andre's reflection in the mirror and he's reacting, he's like, that's the face you give me when I'm telling you anything. And I'm like, okay. I'm sorry, your father.
No, my so,
That's what he was.
funny.
Yo, daddy.
yeah,
there we go.
Not me.
Papi.
Yeah,
Yes.
No, I have people in my own life that are Andre
Wow,
to
okay.
a T, to an absolute T.
Yeah.
And my father, whenever he has to interact with these people, he
that makes-
absolutely despises
Sure.
it. And it's because
Because your dad's very grounded, And
he's so practical.
yeah.
And to especially like if anybody gave this a bad review, the practical man will say, what does it matter? Why are we watching a person wondering about being present? Like I have bills to pay, I have a family to feed.
Yep.
Like if I go and buy a cheeseburger for $1.99, it's because it feeds me and it's cheap and it's easy. Like
Yeah.
I don't need to think about anything else.
Yeah.
And then the idea of thinking about truth. And that's going to be stressful, and that's not going to make me any happier. So what's the point of that? Like, I don't even
I
care.
kind of feel your dad in that point.
Yeah,
but
exactly. But that's why we agree with
the biggest-
Wally's character,
it's
because
the
Wally's
biggest-
like, I have a little notebook, and it makes me happy when I scratch off my notes. Like, I had to go drop off something at the post office, or I had to go do this and do that.
Yeah.
And he is the embodiment of society right now. Yeah.
The biggest question you should ask yourself when you finish watching this film is, am I Wallace or am I Andre? And how many Andres in my life?
I think it's who do I want to be?
Or who? I think you're allowed to be both.
Yeah.
I think Wally's both now.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's kind of a beautiful thing about life is you're allowed to be the safe and but at the same time, if you're not exploring these other things, are you living? You know,
Exactly. That's
I think you're allowed to be both. I think you should always try to be both.
You know what? I just really want to show this to people and then see which are the ones that are going to be like, oh man, thanks. And who are the people that are just going to mash my face in after watching
Wasted
this movie.
2 hours of my life.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
That's most of my picks on this podcast.
I think people should strive to be more like Andre, just not talk about it so much.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, but you're talking about it with a close friend, right?
Yeah, but still with a close friend, like keep it to like 2 minute dialogue. You know?
Period.
Yeah.
Catch us next week for Moneyball.
I love this
Bennett
film.
Miller's Moneyball, written by Steven Zalian, Aaron Sorkin,
Dude,
the
I
great
didn't
Aaron
even know
Sorkin.
Sorkin was a writer on it.
Yeah, I think this was his first nod.
One of 5 films that I've cried in.
And starring Brad Pitt, Robin Wright, Jonah Hill, and the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman's also
Chris
in this.
Pratt?
Oh, no way.
I
Chris
forgot Chris
Pratt,
Pratt's
too,
in this
yeah.
too.
Chris Pratt?
But yeah, check it out. We're gonna be talking about it next week.
You can't miss that one.
I haven't seen this in ages, so I'm excited to
I've
revisit
never
it.
seen this.
Oh, there you go.
I've seen it like once or twice every year because it's on FX.
Oh, really?
Because FX has the movies. You know?
FX does have the
This
movies.
is one of the better movies on FX.
True.
But
about
check
Iron
it out.
Man?
We're going to talk about Moneyball, and then after that, we're going to do a group pick, which I don't
No,
think.
we're not.
That's my pick. You're right. We're going to decide on my pick because I have too many.
But
and
we
I don't
will
know which one
announce
to go
that
with.
next week.
We sure will.
You know what? Now that we watched it, the Joker, we're gonna have to do either umbrellas or one of those, bro.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Castro said he's down for
All
umbrellas.
right, that's it. We're doing
We're
umbrellas
doing
and Shabar.
umbrellas.
Umbrella.
I want to see the Joker now with a little bit more.
Umbrellas.
Umbrellas. Comes out in May, right? It's in May or October?
Talking my umbrella, Ella.
Yeah, we ain't
ruined-
singers. And we don't have enough time to find out if we're
I think
dancers,
you guys
Austin.
need to
So.
rewatch My Dinner with Andre. Go check out My Dinner with Andre. Terrific picture. Thank you, Lau, for the pick. And stay tuned next week for Moneyball. Thank you for joining us on the WatchTower Film Podcast. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Love you guys.
All right, give me your best. It's inconceivable, every single one of you.
We didn't do Princess Bride today. We can't do
Doesn't
that.
matter, it's fine.
I haven't seen it in a
It's
while, bro.
inconceivable.
It's inconceivable.
Get out of here, everybody.
You know what's inconceivable?